Let's do a quick audio check for those online. Jason, can you hear us okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. We can
Cool.
hear you too.
All right, hey everyone, let's call this meeting to order. This is the Fast Plan Technical Committee meeting. It is Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026. We call to orders at 12:01 p.m. For introduction of technical committee members I see present, we have with us today Jennifer Campbell, Michelle Benton, Kate Duber, Tim Glidden, Brett Nelson, John Natardis, Jason Olds, Corey Richardson, Bill Rogers, Kellen Spillman, Jacob Toyrick, and Kristen sitting in for Tim Zinza. Committee members I do not see yet in the meeting or online include Michael Bradley, Alexa Green, Lieutenant Mike Roberts, RJ Stumpf, and John Weinberger. If any of those committee members are present online and I just didn't see you, go ahead and unmute yourself and let us know that you're here. Okay, we'll consider them absent at this time, but if they do join the meeting, I will announce their presence. But we do have quorum to conduct business today. For other members of the meeting, today we have with us for Fast Plan staff, Corey DiRitigliano, myself, Jackson Fox, Olivia Lunsford, and Deborah Todd. And then guests in the meeting today, we have with us Brian Lindemuth in person, and online Randy Bailey, Don Galligan, Clay Anderson, and Megan Flory. Any other guests in the meeting today I did not announce? Okay, hearing none, that's who we have with us today. Let's move on to approval of the June 3rd, 2026 meeting agenda. Can we get a motion on the agenda? Move to approve by Bill Rogers. Is there a second?
Second.
It was second by Jenny. All right, any changes to today's agenda? Hearing none, anyone opposed to approval of the agenda as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider it approved. That takes us to approval of May 6th, 2026 meeting minutes, which are found on pages 2 through 15 of the packet. Can I get a motion on the minutes? Okay, motion to approve by Jenny. Is there a second? Sure. Second by Bill. Any edits to the minutes? Hearing none, anyone opposed to approval of the minutes as presented in the packet? Hearing none, we'll consider those approved. And that is, takes us to staff working group and chair report. This begins on page 16 in your packet. We actually have two sets of policy board action items to go over with you today. First one of which was a special meeting of the policy board that we held on May 8th, a couple days after your last technical committee meeting. This is time sensitive items. First one of which, they did approve the construction increase for the Chino Lake Recreation Area Access via Plaque Road project. The bids came in higher than anticipated on that project, and the policy board did approve the additional expenditure, which we captured in TIP administrative modification number 8. Understanding is that project will break ground this summer. One long lead item that may not be installed during construction this summer, but may wait till next summer, is the vaulted restroom out there at the rec facility. But my understanding is that we'll break ground here soon. Second, they took up the applications to our new community transportation grant program. We did have our project enhancement committee review those grant applications for fast planning, and they received a total of 8 applications. They recommended awarding 6 of those applications, which is shown on the next page in the packet there. But before I get into these projects real quick, they also approved a staff addition for fast planning to retain an Alaska fellow for the 2026 to 2027 school year, so September through May. And we have, as staff, conducted interviews for an Alaska fellow and have selected one. Her name is Francesca Hales. She's from Washington, D.C., and will be joining us in September here to work on a lot of special projects here at Fast Planning. Okay, next page shows you the community grant awards. Just running through them real quickly here. There was an award to Festival of Fairbanks for painted artistic crosswalks and sidewalk art at the intersection of First Avenue and Lacey Street, for what's now being called the Starter Block in downtown. That is closed for the summer. Out in Esther, for the Volunteer Fire Department and Esther Community Association, they awarded a grant for a bike rack and bike repair station. And then there was a second grant award for the Starter Block on Lacey Street to the North Star Community Foundation and Burbank Skate Park Coalition for a mobile skate park on that block following the installation of the asphalt artwork out there. And then the Randy Smith PTA, they actually only applied for $200 for some reflective tape for backpacks and jackets for 300+ students. And the Project Enhancement Committee recommended that budget be increased up to $1,000 for more reflective swag that they could give out to students. They did resubmit a new budget to me based on the award amount, and we have cut that check for that PTA. And then last, Fair Bikes in association with Festival of Fairbanks, a grant was awarded to expand the rental fleet of bicycles that they have and repair the existing bicycles that they have. The 2 applications that were not awarded, but we recommended those applicants refine and resubmitted applications, was some steel drums or outdoor musical equipment for outside the Children's Museum, and then a breathe, hydrate, move yoga course for children. And then one application was withdrawn from the Breadline for a memorial bicycle clinic for a mini fix-it workshop. Their input for the program was that if they were able to apply and receive the funds earlier in the year, they could have completed that workshop at the Breadline during the month of May. So if our policy board approves the second round of this new grant program for 2027, we'll likely try to advertise it earlier in the year, like say January, and then award funds in March so that folks are ready as soon as the snow melts to get some of these projects on the ground. Okay, page 18, the last regular policy board meeting on May 20th. Number of topics they took up, first one of which was the Metropolitan Planning Area boundary, which has still not yet been approved by the governor's office. That has been on their agenda for many months now for updates from DOT. No progress has been reported other than the boundary is on the governor's desk for signature. So the policy board asked the board chair to actually first reach out to the commissioner's office and then also reach out to the governor himself on the status of approval of the boundary, and impress upon them the importance of approving that boundary because of the impacts to both DOT and our Metropolitan Planning Organization. And then at the board's chair's discretion, if he asks me to, I will write a letter to document that importance and run that to the policy board at their next meeting to transmit to the governor's office. At that meeting, they also approved TIP administrative modification number 8, which has been transmitted to DOT for incorporation into the STIP. And then related to the 3 highway safety improvement program projects that you all discussed last month, they did request staff add the Airport Way connected corridor to the TIP via an amendment. They did support DOT moving forward with the College Road 3-lane configuration. They also did support DOT moving forward with some consideration of roundabouts on Badger Road itself at the key intersections they identified as high crash locations. And then at the very end, this one kind of popped up between technical and policy board, but there was interest from the borough mayor's office and borough parks and rec department to accelerate the Fifth Avenue park improvements out in the North Pole area in consideration that the borough has a capital improvement program project to upgrade the playground equipment and green spaces and electrical equipment out there. And they had previously nominated to us some improvements to the parking area and ADA compliance and access, and then paving the gravel trails with asphalt throughout the park. So in consideration of that, this is a project that was previously nominated to Fast Plan for funding in the TIP, and it is next in line for funding. They asked that this also be added to the TIP amendment for consideration of funding this year. Okay, and that concludes my staff working group report. Other than Olivia, do you want to just give them a quick update on the bike and pit counts that were conducted
Sure.
last week?
Yeah. So last week was our annual bike and ped count on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We had, so first off, huge thanks to the railroad for providing tickets for us to raffle off. We implemented what was called a rolling raffle this year. So the more days you volunteered, obviously, the more chances you would have put into the raffle drawing. We haven't drawn anybody yet because I'm still sorting through all of the documents that we received from the bike and ped count, but we had it's not 70 volunteers, but technically people volunteered 70 times to count at various intersections over the course of 3 days. So pretty proud of that turnout. We had several folks who signed up for all 3 days. So that tells us that the incentive really worked this year, which is awesome. So the people who volunteered for 3 total days had 7 entries placed into the raffle. So we'll see who we get to gift 2 round trip tickets from Birmingham to Anchorage and Alaska train. And yeah, we had quite a few people count at the newer intersections that the Walk Right and Roll Advisory Committee had selected to add a few years ago. So it's also cool to see that we're kind of keeping up with the demand of getting information at various popular corridors. So yeah, it was great.
Cool. Thanks, Olivia.
How many intersections total?
I don't have that information yet.
Like
I think it's 36
Oh.
that we have in the program.
I think it's 40.
Oh, maybe it's
Plus like
40.
over, I can
So almost that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, on the first day, so on May 26th, we had 26 people out. So they were at pretty much 50%, if not a little bit more, of the countable intersections on the map. So I can get that number for you there. So
I was just curious.
I thought you meant, yeah, how many were counted.
Oh, no.
Like, I don't know. But I'll find out.
All right, any other questions for staff? Yes, Kellen?
One question, Olivia. I was just curious. I think this was my 16th year doing it.
Yeah.
I found myself wondering, like, is there a trend over time? Do we have that information? Are there more or less bicycles and pedestrians? I always pay special attention to the helmet statistic, but I'm just interested if, and I don't expect you to speak off the cuff, but if there's some way to say, like some trend chart or something on the numbers counted.
Yeah, so speaking of the Alaska Fellow, that's one of the big pipe dreams is that I'm like 90% of the way there, created a digitized version of the bike and ped count form in survey 1, 2, 3. I needed an intern or a fellow to go back and input data for all of the years past. And I really want to have it digitized and then have a format set to proceed. Like anyone who wants to do the count digitally can, and then it'll just go into a spreadsheet that I've created to just import into GIS. But that is like the ultimate goal, is getting our data digitized when the fellow arrives. Hopefully by like late September, we'll have all of that information in a spreadsheet, and then I can just visualize it in a way. I really want to use like the ArcGIS tools where they show trends over time, because they exist, they're pre-built, and we definitely will do that. So
Okay.
yeah, that's the goal. I would definitely say, just from seeing the data, there are more bicyclists and people using a network in a way that I think in years past not so much. So yeah, we'll see. Oh, and then I did get an email once throughout the Bike and Ped Got this year. Someone saw a group of 10 kids and 8 of them are wearing helmets. So 80% is a huge win. There are 50. Yeah, the rack added about 12 a couple of years ago. So, yep, cool.
All right, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to our open public comment period. Is there any member of the public that wishes to provide testimony today on anything not listed as an action item? Don't believe we have anybody in the room. Anybody online? You can just unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and proceed with testimony. Okay, not seeing anybody online, so we'll go ahead and close the public comment period. And we'll move on to old business, the Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 funding split, which is an action item, begins on page 19 in your packet. To refresh the technical committee's memory from our last meeting, this was on your agenda last time. The discussion for this was postponed to this meeting. Brian Lindenwood with the Alaska Railroad is back here in person. If there's any questions or discussion we all would like to continue to have with him. But I wanted to, I guess, open it up to perhaps Michelle Denton or Kellen Spillman with the borough for any thoughts you've had over the past month on this before we entertain a motion, and also an invitation to the Alaska Railroad to speak to it as well. But the recap is the funding split, the request from the railroad for the 5307 funds from the Fairbanks North Pole area is in the amount of just over $100,000 per year. It's about 5% of the 5307 funds that MAC Transit receives. And then behind that, beginning on page 22 in the packet, is the funding split agreed to for the Matsu area, which was a 90-10 split down at that area. Okay. First, I guess I'll open it up to Michelle. I think you had unmuted yourself, and then we'll see if there's anyone else that would like to speak to this for discussion purposes before we entertain the motion.
Thanks, Jackson. I was asked to move to postpone this until the next technical committee meeting by Mayor Hopkins.
Okay. So we're going to wait for a motion here because we have to open this up for public comment before we do a motion. So any other input from the railroad or borough before we move to that? Okay, hearing none, we will now open up this item for public comment before we entertain a motion. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on the proposed funding split between the Alaska Railroad and MAX Transit for the Section 5307 funds? Not in the room. I'll see anybody online unmuting themselves. So we'll go ahead and close the public comment period. So Michelle, did you have a motion to make?
Yeah, the motion is to postpone this action item until the next technical committee meeting in July.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
A second by Kate. Okay. Discussion on that motion. Yes, Kate.
For Michelle, I think that gives us an opportunity maybe to meet separately and discuss this, and certainly in favor of doing that. So no issues from our standpoint on postponing this.
Any other discussion? All right, guess this is an easy one. Okay, I'm just gonna ask if there's anyone on the technical committee opposed to postponing this item to the July meetings of the technical committee of policy board. Hearing no one opposed, we'll consider that motion approved. Okay, next item on the old business, 7B, the draft federal fiscal year 2027 through 2028 Unified Planning Work Program. This begins on page 25 in your packet. So this document in your packet is a required work product for metropolitan planning organizations in the federal regulations. It's basically the staff work plan of what fast planning staff will be doing over the next 2 years, kind of quarter by quarter and year to year. And it outlines how we will be spending our federal planning funding, metropolitan area, as well as the transit planning funding for our area. And it identifies any special supplemental plans or studies that we intend to undertake over the next 2 years. And I did previously present to the technical committee a list of those special plans and studies that we are proposing to fund over the next 2 years, and then a secondary list of if additional funding was available or if we got an additional grant, here's some other additional studies, a little bit lower priority studies that we would consider funding. So I'm gonna walk you through this document real briefly. It's probably the most boring document that we've produced, so you don't have to pay too much attention to a lot of this stuff, but when we get into this, the list of new proposed plans and studies that we really want to fund in 27 and 28, I think that's, if you want to focus on any one area, that would be the area to focus on. And really, I mean, I put together estimates for how much it would cost to do this study or this plan. And if anybody has input on, no, you should probably double that amount, or no, that's too much money, it should be simpler, you know, that type of input, of course, is appreciated. But the action item here today is just to authorize staff to release this for a 30-day public comment period. So this is not your only crack at any input or comments that you have on this. You can make comments during the open comment period. This will circle back for approval at the technical committee and policy board, likely at your August meetings before we transmit it to the Federal Highway Administration. Olivia, if you'll scroll forward to page 33. So this document starts out with our required planning work. Task 100A is the Unified Planning Work Program. It simply states that we're going to be, as we do our work here at Fast Planning, we will submit quarterly reports to DOT on the work that was accomplished and funding that was spent. The DOT will prepare an annual report each year based on the quarterly reports that we submit. Scrolling down to the next task, 100B is the Metropolitan Transportation Plan or Long Range Transportation Plan. This section simply outlines the current schedule for an interim MTP update by the end of this year, with a full MTP update to be completed in 2027 by the fall of that year, and all the steps in that process, including interagency consultation for air quality conformity. On the next page at the bottom, 100C is our Transportation Improvement Program, which is our short 4-year funding plan for the projects that come out of the short range of the MTP. So this section, and following on to the next page, outlines our schedule for beginning development of the next TIP, which will run from 2027 out to 2030. And when that call for project nominations will be, the interagency consultation, 30-day comment period, and the process for adoption and incorporation into STIP. And then pages 36 and 37 cover our public participation plan and our Title VI plan, and that we are committing to, during 2027 or 2028, a 5-year review of that plan and update it to reflect current outreach techniques that are being used at Fast Planning. So we're really just committing to updating both of those plans by the end of 2028. Olivia may do it much faster than that, but that is a task here that we'd like to undertake over the next 2 years. Then page 38 cover the metropolitan plan area boundary and the current saga that we're in with that. And that we will continue to seek the governor's approval, on approval of that boundary, to be able to officially utilize that for our long and short range transportation plans. And then page 39 is support services, which is really kind of the stuff we do on a daily basis as far as operating our nonprofit corporation, our budgeting, and participating in local, regional, and state committee and commission meetings, presentations as requested, and our general communications with the public or with the governments. Page 40, task 200 covers transit planning. We of course produced an updated transit plan and coordinated human services transportation plan in 2024. So we'll continue to work with Max Transit on and our other local service providers on implementation of those plans. And then this also includes a new request from Max Transit for us to complete a paratransit operational efficiency study. So that is something that we want to get off the ground as soon as possible to assist the borough with that effort. Okay, so page 41. This shows you task 300A through D, the 4 existing planning efforts that are currently underway and will be ongoing through 2027 and some of these potentially into 2028. But we have advanced project definition, which helps DOT and the city of Fairbanks scope out and produce estimates for projects that will be nominated or incorporated into the TIP. Corey is still working with our Complete Streets Steering Committee on developing an update to that policy and eventually completing a Complete Streets prioritization plan. There's no real timeline on that, but it's work that's going to be continued to be worked on this year and may go into next year. The North Pole High School Access and Circulation Study has been funded. We're just waiting on DOT to release a request for proposals to hire a consultant team to get that work underway, hopefully by the fall. And then the Geist-Chena Pump Road Corridor Study that has been awarded. I believe it's Kinney Engineering that has that contract. That work will begin this summer. So page 42, these are the new studies that we're hoping that we consider high priority. The next page there. That we consider high priority that we are proposing to fund beginning in 27 or 28. First one is downtown Fairbanks traffic study, looking at potential conversion of the one-way streets back to two-way streets. The next one is a pavement condition survey for non-DOT roads. DOT does collect pavement condition data on state facilities each year. It's underneath the contract with Fergo. I believe it's statewide. They do this in Anchorage, Mat-Su, et cetera. Recently, Mat-Su was able to jump onto that contract to get pavement condition survey done for the borough and city streets down there. And I think a similar arrangement up here in Fairbanks would be good to collect pavement condition data on city streets for both Fairbanks and North Pole. Any paved borough road service area roads would be good. And if UAF was interested in getting a pavement condition survey done on their roads, that could be part of this contract as well. But anyways, again, non-DOT roads. Next one is an update to our freight mobility plan that we adopted in 2019. Since then, a couple new things have happened. We have the Kinross Black Gold Overhaul coming through the community, as well as Amazon has set up a distribution center here in Fairbanks, and their local delivery vehicles are all over town now, probably even going to your house. So there's a new local freight delivery option, as well as this overhaul operation. And then on the horizon, planning for the Alaska LNG line and potentially Ambler Road and more mining support to and from Fairbanks traveling through our area in connection to the railroad. So updating that plan to factor in all that, look for new freight bottlenecks or other freight turning movements or pavement condition needs to be addressed to be able to handle those operations. And then below that, Pega Road Corridor Study. This has been discussed at technical a few different times, but we were surprised during our initial outreach effort for the long range transportation plan update. We received a tremendous amount of comments on a variety of different issues, all up and down Pega Road. This corridor is also on DOT's radar as a high crash corridor, where some safety improvements need to be addressed. But the public was interested in, roadway lighting, pedestrian lighting, gaps in bike and pet facilities, a lot of variety of different issues, dangerous intersections. So DOT would really like to, move forward with the corridor study for Pega Road as well. And then the next page is the Lacey Street Planning Study, which is already funded in the TIP. It's just not been started yet, but get that off the ground here in the next year or two. And then behind that is our contingency plans and projects, beginning on page 44. I won't go through each one of these. It's kind of a long list, but these are other planning efforts that, should we have additional funding or there's some strong interest in beginning work on any one of these, we would consider those for funding in the future. The previous list I presented, we are planning to go ahead and fund those. This list is some extra studies that there's interest. But we consider them lower priority, and that's something technical committee can argue about as well. Any of those need to be bumped up into the higher priority list. And then behind that is just all the math of the amount of planning funds we receive for metropolitan planning and transit planning, the match required, the reduction in that total cost for the indirect cost allocation plan rate from DOT, which has actually gone up from 5% to over 7% now. So that takes a huge chunk out of our funding for planning. And then, yeah, the middle of that page 47 there shows you the, my cost estimates for how much I think it would cost to do those high priority plans. The next page has a more comprehensive list of our office tasks. There was supplemental plans, which I consider high priority, and then the lower priority contingency plans. And fiscal constraint demonstrations on the next page, page 49. And then go to page 51. This just shows you the historical distributions of planning funds to our metropolitan planning organization from 2023, when we were officially designated as a metropolitan planning organization, to present. So you can see over time planning funds have increased, but we are proposing to maintain, continuing to grant borough community planning department and DOT planning department a portion of our planning funds each of these years, in accordance with past distributions. So no change to the funding allocation to the borough. That's probably enough. Again, the action here today is to authorize us to release it for public comment. You can also make any motions to make any changes to this document you'd like to see here today before we go to the policy board, or you can review and digest this and provide comments to us via email anytime now or during the public comment period for consideration of changes. All right, any questions before we open this up for public comment and entertain a vote? Okay, here are no questions. Is there any public comment on this item today? Any public comment? Record RJ Stout, the technical committee has joined us. All right, at this time, I'll entertain a motion. Is there a motion on the draft UPWP? Yes, Kellen.
I'll move to recommend approval of the federal fiscal year 27 to 28 UPWP to the Fast Planning Policy Board.
Okay, and just for clarification, the board is just authorizing it to be released for a 30-day comment. You want that as
Or release of a 30-day public comment period.
Okay, cool.
This
All
is
right,
Michelle, I'll second.
I'll give it to Michelle. Go ahead, Kellen.
A couple of comments, and I'm not sure if it needs motions. I'll defer to you on that. One thing I found very helpful, so I spent a lot of time on task 300, the kind of supplemental plans and studies. I found that very useful. I agree with all of those. One thing that wasn't clear to me through all those plans and studies, the descriptions would be which particular ones we would be hiring a consultant for, or which particular ones it would be done in-house or just as a DOT. So that's,
So I do note that in one of the spreadsheets.
oh,
Um,
I missed that.
no, it's totally fine. And I can mention that, so page 21. If you'll zoom into the center of that,
Wait,
sorry, page 48,
okay.
apologies. So if you zoom into the middle there, you'll see all the plans that have this little one note next to them at the end. And at the bottom, it says assumes use of a consultant for plan development.
Okay. Sorry, I just missed that, I guess.
So in-house staff will do advanced project definition and completions prioritization plan and the bike and pedestrian improvements implementation plan. And the driver's education program, but all other ones will be with the assistance of a consultant.
Okay. Could I keep going here?
Go ahead.
My other comment, we talked about this for several meetings. And I'm gonna bring up Airport Way.
Yep.
And we talked a lot about Airport Way, ugliest road in Fairbanks. I am definitely not in favor of another Airport Way study. It's, in my opinion, we've studied it to death. We had some really good conversations here, and I had some good follow-up conversations with Al Beck at the DOT, who was involved in, I think, both of those previous DOT-led studies. And I saw he copied you on an email
Yes.
to both of us. Al kind of proposed an idea. He called it an Airport Way audit.
Hmm.
That a small group would get together and spend basically a week taking all the studies and actually spending time on Airport Way and figuring out what we're gonna do and when we're gonna do it. Which fences are we gonna take down? Which intersections, again, with 3 different studies, could be able to break access management on those. So I thought that was a fantastic idea. I'm all in favor of that. I am not in favor of another Airport Way study. Is that something that needs to be called out in this document? Or is that something we can just?
I think it would be great, actually, because we would put it on the task 300, and we would note that it would be a staff effort, not consultant.
So
Yep.
I'll make a motion to recommend the addition of a Airport Way audit under task 300. Sorry, bear with me here.
Yeah. I think that's fine, under task 300, because I'll just add it in as item number J.
Okay, I could help with the description after, and Al has a lot of good information in his email he sent as well.
All right,
Also,
and Jenny has the second, so good. All right, discussion on that amendment?
No, I just want to say that I was wondering where it was in here, and so that was a question I had too, but,
I removed it
okay. Yeah.
because I felt like the committee didn't want to do another study. So I was silent on it, but I think it's good to add it back in as a non-consultant effort.
Right.
So it's good.
I think it'll just show good action that we're moving forward on some things.
You go ahead, John.
I was just gonna follow up that I think there's a lot of small changes that could be made without coming back to this committee or policy board, such as DOT maintenance, just making the call to take many of these fences down after consulting with traffic safety. But any big changes, any capital projects that come out of this would come back to this committee. So I think that's important to note that the TIF would reflect any other projects that are coming out of this.
Okay, further discussion on the amendment. Everybody's saying it's a bad idea, so I'll just ask, is anyone opposed to that amendment to add the Airport Way audit to the WP underneath the task? Okay, hearing none opposed, we'll consider that amendment approved. We're back to the main motion as amended. Any further discussion?
So when this goes out to comment period, would there be open process to, or is it just like an online thing?
This is, not that interesting of a topic for the public. I don't believe that we'll do an open house, and I don't think we have that listed in our PPP for this one. We do open houses for our long-range plan and our short-range plan, but this one is likely just gonna be outreach via social media, newspaper, or standard outreach methods. We rarely get public comments on this. We will get agency comments, like DOT may look at one of these descriptions or say the Peg Road corridor study and like, no, we'd really prefer if it was written this way. And, you know, we'll accept those as comments and we'll resolve all those, but it's mostly agency staff, like folks at the table here that submit comments. As opposed to the general meeting, but it will be open to public to review. All right, any further discussion? The motion is amended. All right, I'll ask if there's anyone opposed to the motion as amended, which is to recommend to the policy board or to release this document for 30-day comment period and add in the airport way audit underneath task 300 prior to its release. Anyone opposed to that motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll consider that approved. We'll move on to item 7C. The Fast Improvement Program project selection, which begins on page 52 of the packet. And I'll turn it over to John Natardis here in a moment. This is not listed as an action item on the agenda today because I had not yet received the cost estimates from John Natardis, and we had not held a subcommittee meeting to begin bundling those into $2 million groups for 2027 and 2028. But page 52 reflects the original nominations from the April 30th subcommittee meeting where we accepted nominations. I still have not received any nominations yet from Michael Bradley for rural services. So still waiting on anything that he may nominate for this program. But I do understand John Natardis and his team have been hard at work doing site visits and preparing estimates for each of these locations. And Olivia, you can pull up his new spreadsheet that I received just before the meeting right now. And I guess I'll turn it over to John to, I guess, give some notes on what he's come up with. Then I guess my hope is that John might take the first stab at bundling these into $2 million things for 27 and 28. But I'd like to schedule a subcommittee meeting to go over it in detail so that we have an official recommendation for board's approval. So, John, did you want to speak to your
Sure,
estimate?
sounds good. I think we all know about the program and the goals and 20% non-motorized, 80%, goal like that. And equity of dispersing the funds and projects throughout the different entities. So what I've done is gone on site visits with 4 of the entities. DOT, I count as one of them. I went out with myself and with the city of Fairbanks, I met Tim Zinza and one of their engineers on site on all the sites. And then the Fairbanks North Star Borough. We went out with Trish and Kimberly to the parks, and UAF, we went out with Jacob Twiterick to all of those sites. So I do still need to visit some of the sites with the representative from the city of North Pole and the borough RSA roads, if any are nominated. So thus far, none have been nominated, so none will be in the projects. There can't be any without nominations. So what you're looking at here is these are the numbers for each project that has been proposed thus far. The gray lined ones we've removed, and I'll explain why on each one of those. And then you'll see there's a block for 27 and 28, and if the funding shows up on the left side, it's motorized, right side, it's not motorized. And if you scroll down to the bottom, I've equaled it out to exactly $2 million each. By putting the remaining funds kind of equitably into the borough RSA road section. That's why they have two goofy numbers with no roads associated. It's a placeholder for now. I assume they're gonna propose some roads, but I did take the first stab at 2 years worth of project. And they come out to, at the bottom, you'll see 76 and 24%, motorized versus non-motorized, and then 66 and 34. If we go with this setup as it is right now, then in the right side of each blue row, you'll see how much percent of the 4 million over the 2 years that is for those entities. The borough, obviously gets a lot. They have a lot of area, a lot of roads, the parks, as well as the RSA roads. City of North Pole is generally a little bit lighter, City of Fairbanks more, and then UAF and DOT are kind of random every year, it seems like. But I want to go through the red ones, I guess the ones that were not, or sorry, the gray ones. You can barely see the gray on the screen. The 8th Avenue at Slough Crossing was taken out. Oh, sorry, all the way at the top. Gaffney sidewalk we removed. I removed that every year out of this program. We're not going to repeat why, but it's basically a mini reconstruct project that will require TCPs or TCPs, and we talk about it every time. So that one was removed. The Myrtle Thomas Park sidewalk, I think we removed that last year. Just looking at the sidewalks and seeing the utility poles in or near the sidewalks. So that's beyond the scope of the simple resurfacing or repaving or very, very simple stuff. Down in the city of North Pole, I have 8th Avenue past Slough Crossing crossed out after we went out and looked at it. That would get into a lot more than the scope of this project. It would get into right away or wetlands or just things that slow down the project. The bus stops and shelters are possible. In the notes on the right side, I said possibly 2028. I need to do a site visit with Tim and see what that's about. If we're doing any new ground disturbance, if it's in a wetland, or et cetera. If there's any right of way considerations. If there's like barely any disturbance and right of way and the pad is kind of there, we may be able to just put a sidewalk in, pull the bus stop over, put up a sign, and then build a shelter. I think those come pretty prefab generally something. So that's very possible. I just need to go look at it with them. And then North Pole Middle School sidewalk, Snowman Lane and 4th Avenue. Since we did not go out with the city of North Pole yet, we had no idea what this was. So I don't know how to price it out. Yeah, looking around the area, all the sidewalks by North Pole Middle School, Snowman, 4th look pretty good. But if we go out, we can verify those. Down at the bottom, I took out Geist Road Path for now, the very bottom, because there will be, if you scroll down, yep. Geist Road Path I took out because there's that new LDS temple going in, and they're gonna be altering the Geist Road in that area for turn lanes, turn pockets and stuff. And on their side of the road, there's also that path that DOT wanted to refresh. But I kind of want to see what the temple comes up with in terms of plans for the road and path nearby before we repave something that might need to get moved again immediately. So I want to delay thinking about that one for a while. Otherwise, all the prices you see have been estimated and given generous pedestrian kind of accommodation funding. Something we're running into now is with the new MUTCD stuff and us adhering to that during construction. Like if you saw Cal's and airport last summer, there was all that orange stuff up everywhere. So much to accommodate pedestrians through the work zone there. We're finding the balance of how much we have to do, and it is more than it used to be, and it is more expensive. So I've incorporated that as well as recent pricing of bid data that's come in recently, like for Chino Lake, and seeing that the oil or anything that uses oil, like hauling materials and such, is costing a lot more these days. So if you see a price and it looks like too much, it's probably not. Just want to make sure we have enough in there. Otherwise, I think we need to have a subcommittee meeting where we drill down deeply into each one of these. I have all the estimates broken out. Each one has its own estimate with what we're doing, the widths, amount of materials, depths, kind of temporary accommodations during construction. We've thought about everything for each one so far, except the ones we haven't visited. And the subcommittee could really get into that and see maybe, plan out 2 years worth of projects. And hopefully, let's see, Michael Bradley gets us any new roads or whatever that he wants as well. We can fill those kind of numbers in there for borough RSA roads. But yeah, if anyone wants this, I can send it to you. And you can take a look and do your own sorting, maybe prior to a subcommittee meeting. But I do want to go to a subcommittee meeting in like within 2 weeks or so.
Right.
If that works for everyone, and then we can select something for 2027, next meeting here. Which would be nice.
Okay.
And
Well, I
last,
can get a doodle poll out for the next subcommittee meeting,
okay,
today or tomorrow. So that we can find a good date and time where at least someone from each member agency is present.
that sounds really good. Lastly, where you see 27 and 28, those are gonna be the fast area surface upgrades FY 2027 federal fiscal year. So 27 is gonna be built in 28, 28 will be built in 29. We're a year behind on getting a project out and then constructing it. We are constructing 25 right now this year, and 26 is getting constructed next year, so we've already kind of settled into that groove naturally.
All right, thanks, John. Yep. All right, questions for me or John? Yeah, this is just an informational update, and I'm gonna commit to getting out a doodle poll together tomorrow. The schedule of the subcommittee meeting. Hopefully that gives enough for John to visit with Tim, let's say North. Me to connect with Mike Bradley and Thorough Rural Services. Yes, Tim.
The red ones, something special also.
Yeah, sorry, the red ones, so, gray, I kind of got rid of. Red, were not selected in my first shot at a split of 2 years of projects. Does that make sense? So if you see red and you're like, oh man, that was one of my favorite ones, then maybe that's something to focus in on and try to get into either year at the subcommittee meeting and then subsequently the technical meeting.
I see a lot of those are the most expensive products too.
Yeah, they're hard to fit in and be equitable.
Right. Go ahead, Jane.
I was just wondering if you could send this out to everybody. I don't think.
Yeah,
You can have this version that I sent y'all.
Yeah, just.
And there's actually there's a tab for each one that has some pricing information too. You can have it. Do you want me to send it out, or Jackson, do you want to?
I've got the committee list, I can. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, please do.
Yep, okay.
Oh, and lastly, this is for phase 4, so the phase 2 funding request may depend on what we select as well,
Yep.
because if we contract out to Fairbanks or City of Fairbanks or something, or we may need more money or less, depending on what we select and how difficult it is, and if any, it's like a survey or something. In the first rendition, I put the more difficult and like projects that I anticipate needing some type of extra work, like some survey or something like that, into the 28 column if selected. The 27 column is currently a bunch of what I think are gonna be very simple ones.
Good to know, yeah. Okay. All right, any other questions for me or John?
Is that
Yeah, go ahead,
one
Jacob.
question? On some of them, you have like a split. Is that?
Yeah, on 2 of them,
Not?
I was trying to pump up the pedestrian numbers or the non-motorized numbers by calling it 50/50, because the TLRA stuff really is for non-motorized stuff, but
It's
it's.
just the 10 Loop West, some of that is pedestrian as well.
Oh, yeah, that could be split 50/50, but when I got to the bottom, currently we had plenty of percent in non-motorized, so I didn't need to keep adding any, but yeah, that's a good comment. When we're in subcommittee, we can look at that too. maybe bank up some extra non-motorized stuff if there's like a heavy road here, you know, in 29 or 30 or something.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, here now we'll move on to item 8A, new business. The transportation improvement program, amendment number 3, which begins on page 54 in the packet. I went over this briefly during my staff report at the beginning of the meeting, but to refresh your memory, as shown on page 54, I have the direction from the policy board to proceed forward with a new amendment to our TIP document to add 2 new projects. That is the Airport Way Connected Corridor, which is funded with Highway Safety Improvement Program dollars, and the North Pole Fifth Avenue park improvements, which I will be proposing to fund with Transportation Alternative Program dollars or TAP dollars. The TAP dollars I intend to use will be taken from the Chena Riverwalk project because due to the delays in getting that to construction, we have a bunch of funding from this year, year before, and the year before that can fully fund this project. So, I'm going to use some old funding that was not used yet on Chena Riverwalk to do that. Behind this is all the information for those 2 projects, which was presented to the policy board. The one thing I'll note is yesterday I sent out the doodle poll for the interagency consultation meeting. I've got to have that meeting before we release it for public comment. I'm hoping to have that meeting next week so that during the month of June, this 30-day comment period begins and wraps up in July. So that we can approve this amendment prior to the end of this federal fiscal year. So, and I won't necessarily run you through all the documents in here. A lot of these you've seen, but I did want to show you page 67, the last page of this section in the packet. Just to show you, during the last time we developed our current TIP document, at that time we scored. The technical committee scored a total of 7 projects. 2 were traditional road projects and 5 were non-motorized projects. And the technical committee and policy board agreed to fund the top 4, 2 from each category. But as you can see there, next in line for projects that are already scored and next in line for funding was this nomination for the Borough Parking and Pathway Improvements and Community Access Project. And Fifth Avenue Park North Pole was the top priority underneath that program. So, so the technical committee wouldn't need to rescore this project, but we'll see what the public thinks about these investments. But I do anticipate it to be low cost for the house. And at this time, those are the only 2 new projects being added to the TIP amendment. And it will likely, well, no, it will be the last amendment to the current TIP. This fall, we'll be replacing the TIP with a new TIP for 27 through 28. You'll see this fund carry forward from the old TIP into the new TIP. So stay tuned for that to be released for public comment as well. All right, any questions on TIP amendment number 3? Okay. Seeing none, informational item 2026 obligations and offsets is on page 68. I've not updated this since the end of April because I've not received a obligation report yet from DOT for the month of May, but I'm sure we'll get one here soon. And update this prior to the next policy board meeting. I will say obligations are slow, and there's a lot of obligations that have been turned into the Alaska Division Federal Highway Administration Office. They continue to be short-staffed, and it's going to be a really big push to get all this funding obligated before the end of the federal fiscal year. So they're just behind, and I understand why they're behind. The hope is that anything that doesn't get obligated, we carry that forward. But that determination will be made at that time. The Federal Highway Administration Alaska Division Office Administrator or Deputy Administrator will be in Fairbanks June 22nd and 23rd in their office 2 days, all day. So with our other MPO counterparts from Anchorage and Matsu, so this will be on the agenda to discuss with them. the plan for the funding that's not yet been obligated yet this year. And then page 71 is our current offsets, with TIP administrative modification number 8. We did spend down part of that balance. The original offset was from a low bid on Yankovic Valley Hill Road, but then there was a need for more money in Yankovic, so I spent some there. And Dochi Avenue, the latest engineer's estimate was slightly higher than what the original engineer's estimate was, so. But we do want to spend this down to $0 by the end of July, so waiting on some change orders. So. Not saying I hope that there's change orders, but I've got some money that I need to burn on change orders. So, we'll see what pops up, this month and next month. I'm sure that'll all get spent, but something we track. This funding truly is nuclear. So I try to bring the balance down a bit, but we got more to go. Any questions and obligations and offsets? Hearing none, we have no other issues today. So we're gonna wrap up an hour early, but I'll open call for any committee member comments before we adjourn the meeting. You have to get back on the spot, don't you? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn? John Atardis, there's a second.
Second.
We got Jenny in the room here. All right, any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 1:01 p.m.
Great, thanks.
Why did I expect to be there?